When I say Doug Hannon, you immediately think of his other name, right? The Bass Professor. It's pretty cool to have a name that everyone knows, but to have two names that everyone knows is something really special, and that's no question about how special Doug Hannon was. As the Bass Professor, you know, it was, he would come on TV and we'd be watching people jerking on big fish, fast and furious, and Doug would come on and everything would slow down. And we'd go underwater, and we'd learn something. You know, about what was happening down there, something about the bass, something scientific that was unlocked for us, and it was terrific. It was absolutely fascinating. He was a one-of-a-kind individual. My favorite Doug Hannon memory, we went down there to his place in Florida about 20 years ago, and we had a crew, film crew, and we were going to shoot a thing with him, and I'd never been to his place before, and you pull up and you see this great pond, and you'd seen it on the features, and you wanted to see it up close. And he had, back in those 20 years ago, you didn't see that many aerators on a pond. It was kind of shocking. And I asked him, I said, are you having success with that? Are you growing some big bass? He says, well, come on and get in the boat and I'll show you. And so I got in the flat bottom boat, and we went out there, paddled out there or actually we had a trolling motor. We went out there about 50 feet. He says, watch this. And he gets a Pepsi can off the bottom and flings it out there about 20 feet. And it sits there on the top of the water for about 5 seconds, and all of a sudden, like that, and the can is gone. And I see a line of bubbles going the other direction for about 20 yards, and all of a sudden the can pops up to the top, and it's crushed down like that. And he says, we've had some pretty good success out here with this. And I said, yeah, I'd say you did. He's an unbelievable guy. Just amazing, the things he was able to do. I was actually at Media Day for the Bassmasters. I was talking to Tim Johnson, the third guy from Montana to ever qualify for the Bassmaster Classic, and we talked about Doug Hannon. And he said, when I was a much younger man, I could not figure out how to fish a lake. I didn't know Doug. Somehow I got a hold of his phone number. I called him up, rang him up, and he dropped everything like he had nothing else to do and talked to me for an hour, to some kid in Montana he didn't even know. So generous to spend that hour with him and really open up fishing for him. A lot of people can share similar stories about Doug Hannon. A popular author, a great author, so many great books, a tremendous inventor as well. So many of his inventions we're still utilizing in this day and age. There would be people as amazing as Doug Hannon, but no one quite like Doug Hannon. Definitely one of a kind. And welcome to the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, Doug Hannon. Russ Riley is here. Russ is Doug's great friend and business partner in so many of the enterprises, and been through a rough year, of course, and we are so thankful that Russ would make time to come up here and share some memories of Doug Hannon. We've all got them, and they're all great. Russ, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Love to hear what you have to say.
Well, I do have a little bit of something to say here in a minute, but first I've got a letter from a friend of many of you. He asked me to read this. It's very quick. It says, I apologize that a scheduling conflict prevents me from being here in person, but I am there in spirit, as I'm sure Doug is with all of you. Unless he forgot about it because he's out in that back shop working on a new project. Doug and I go back a long ways. Like most of us, my first introduction to Doug was through his writing, and I was immediately drawn to the genius of his unique perspective of things. We first met in person when I produced his first ever TV appearance, which was a big bass segment shot in Ocala for In Fisherman TV. We were lifelong friends after that. Matter of fact, I caught my first 10-pound bass with him, and he caught his first muskie with me. Anglers are remembered for different things. I think most common might be the money that they've won in tournaments, or the big fish they've caught and were able to show off. But the most important and long-lasting and most meaningful thing to be remembered for are contributions to the overall body of angling knowledge. Doug Hannon's contributions to the body of bass fishing and angling were unparalleled, only perhaps by the legendary Buck Perry. They include his unique observations in regards to edge theory, smart cover, mechanical versus random non-mechanical action lures. I don't even know what that is. Triggering and attracting qualities, and inventions including the weedless trolling motor prop by Motor Guide, the WaveSpin spool design, and the microwave guide. I can think of no one more deserving of this honor than our dear departed friend, Doug Hannon, the Bass Professor, signed Larry Dahlberg. If I'd ever dreamed in a million years I'd be standing here in front of you folks for any reason, I wouldn't have skipped that public speaking class back in high school. Doug Hannon, Robert Douglas Hannon, AKA the Bass Professor, guide, writer, published author, underwater photographer, top authority on bass, consultant, inventor of more than 20 outdoor patents, of course, the weedless trolling motor prop, a very unique spinning spool design for spinning reels, and of course, most recently, his very cool guide, now known as Microwave Guide by American Tackle. Many of us remember Doug from his appearances on multiple TV shows, which taught many so much. Doug also holds the record for the most bass costs in a lifetime, weighing over 10 pounds. He quit keeping track at 800. Doug was a staunch supporter of Ray Scott and bass and is one of the first life members, an honored member of the Freshwater Hall of Fame and also a recipient of the Teddy Award. Doug made many friends over the years. Some of those friends are here today. Oh, the stories that he's told me, Mike Pione, and Sandra of some of the things that he'd done in adventures with some of you. Don't worry, Ray, I'm not going to repeat any of those stories. Doug's mind was something to behold. He was cerebral. Doug did not see life's issues as most of us do. I often asked Doug to please lower his IQ when he was speaking to me. Doug could easily have been seen eccentric and viewed most everything in life differently than many of us. As it turns out, seeing things differently created the catalyst for all the many wonderful things that he gave to us, thus proving that being different is not always so bad. Doug was asked the same question time and time again. How and why did you think of that? Doug would never answer. Finally, I asked Doug, why don't you answer that question when these people ask you? And he just smiled at me and he said, because the answer is obvious. I didn't get it. I said, well, how about being a nice guy and telling me the answer? His smile broadened and he laid his hand on my shoulder and he said very clearly, the answer is because it works. Why would anybody ever invent anything that didn't work? We will always have champions. We will always have superstars, legends, icons that come around but once. Those who pioneered and made bass fishing what it is today. The originals, Ray Scott, Tom Mann, Ray Mirsky, Bill Dance, Jimmy Houston, Roland Martin, Blake Honeycutt, and so many more. All the inductees from the past and today. We see Doug Hannon as one of those icons. Starting early on, he brought great things to the world of bass fishing. And to those close to him, he brought even more. Most of all, he was our friend. If Doug was with us today, he would be extremely honored to be standing here. He would be humbled by the recognition from his fellow angling comrades and cherish this minute and this moment forever. My name is Russ Riley, and I am honored to have been able to stand here in front of you today to accept the induction to the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame for Doug Hannon, the Bass Professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's collect your trophy here.